Welcome back. The world's attention, viewers, is firmly focused on France, where leaders of the world's most powerful economies have gathered for the G7 summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attending his 7th G7 meeting at a time when the global geopolitical landscape is witnessing an unprecedented turbulence, from Iran crisis, Ukraine war to trade tensions, energy security concerns. The summit comes against the backdrop of multiple global flashpoints. Obviously, the meeting today is being closely watched, not just for the optics, but also for the significance at a critical moment in global affairs. This will be the first time, or rather the first in-person meeting between the two leaders, obviously since February 2025, coming against the backdrop of an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. Interaction follows a period marked by differences over trade, tariff issues, making it rather an important opportunity for both sides to re-engage, potentially reset the tone of bilateral ties. All right, I believe we are being joined by Managing Editor Zaka Jacob. He's joining us live. He's live from the G7 summit venue. Morning, Zaka. There's only one question really to ask today. It's all about, the Modi-Trump meeting, that camaraderie, howdy, Modi, namaste, Trump camaraderie was missing yesterday. Today, what's expected from this meeting? Is it going to be just optics? Will we see that chemistry being rekindled? Or are we, expecting some real results from this meeting?
Well, look, I think the chemistry is a consequence of the nature of the relationship itself changing. I think in the last year, you have seen quite a few sticking points in the relationship, whether it's on trade and tariffs, whether it's on buying Russian oil. India was the only country that was sanctioned for buying Russian oil. Those sanctions are being wavered month after month since this Iran war began. And most importantly now, after this war has begun, India has been really beat up because of the international oil prices. 4 times domestically, India has had to raise the prices. And most recently, in the past week, the killings of these 3 Indian sailors and the rather contrite response from the US government, from the US State Department, all of those things are sticking points. They are irritants in the relationship. And there's only so much chemistry can sort of overcome those sticking points. So I think this is a good opportunity for both the leaders. They will meet at about 2:45 local time. That's about roughly 4 or 5 hours from now here in Evian. And they will basically be, trying to understand how best they can deal with some of these niggling issues. Certainly, the Prime Minister yesterday in his G7 speech did make that mention of seafarers. He didn't specifically name Indian seafarers, but he said that the security of seafarers in any international waterway must be guaranteed. I think that was clearly a reference to the 3 Indian sailors who were killed by American Navy fire. That issue will definitely come up. I don't know if it will come up in front of the cameras, but certainly behind the scenes, that issue will certainly be raised by the Prime Minister with President Trump. That's the most proximate one. On the trade front, well, look, they've been negotiating for over a year now. I believe Jameson Greer, who is the U.S. Chief Trade Representative, will be coming to India next week, and they're still trying to iron out the last remaining chinks as far as those trade talks are concerned. I think India is one of the major powers with whom U.S. has still not arrived at a trade agreement. So that, again, is a bit of a sticking point. And then, of course, there is the whole issue of Russian oil. India says that it's free to buy oil from anywhere in the global markets. But the fact is also that over the last 3 months since this war began, on a monthly basis, the U.S. Treasury Department has been giving these sanctions waiver for purchase of Russian oil. Just recently, after the announcement on Monday by Trump that they're going to sign the deal, the peace deal between Iran and America on Friday, somebody in the Treasury Department, I'm not sure if it is Scott Bessent or whoever else it was asked a question by American reporters as to what happens to the Russian sanctions. He says, we will bring it back. So that means, again, that is something that India will have to contend with. The Prime Minister will hopefully raise that issue with President Trump as to, we can't keep having these monthly waivers. At the end of the day, India started buying Russian oil in 2022 when the war began, upon insistence of Western countries like the United States, because this oil had to go somewhere and it had to be bought under that cap. That cap was, of course, fixed by countries like the US and countries in Western Europe. So India was only playing by the rules. So all of these issues will come up in that conversation when President Trump and Prime Minister Modi meet. Like you said, it's the first time in over a year that they will be meeting face-to-face in person, and hopefully some of these issues will get ironed out.
Right, and before we let you go, just one more question. The multiple sticking issues which you highlighted, Seafarers issue, something which Prime Minister had also spoken of, you said likely to come up. What are the other issues, the sticking issues which could be taken up in this meeting? And given that, there are so many issues between the two countries, are we expecting any sort of real outcome from this meeting?
Well, look, as far as a big breakthrough is concerned, I don't think anyone's quite expecting a big breakthrough. I think what they're expecting is that a degree of normalcy returns to the relationship. What has happened, I think, in the last year in this relationship is over the last 25 years, the strategic partnership had a certain rationale, and that rationale was it made sense for both America and India to come together, two big democracies, two big Indo-Pacific powers, because the common threat was China. Today what has happened, and certainly in the last year what has happened is, I think America has reset its calculations when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. You saw last month when Trump went to Beijing, there was a big reset in the relationship between Beijing and Washington. Today, Trump himself is calling it a G2 world. That's the phrase he used when he met Xi Jinping. They're talking about constructive strategic stability. So I think there's some kind of a détente between China and the United States, and that is, of course, going to have down-the-line consequences for countries like India. For example, the announcement that happened today, this morning, the U.S. Central Command has decided to rename the Indo-Pacific Command, which oversees American military operations over the Indo-Pacific, now reverts back to its old name, which is the U.S. Pacific Command, or the PACOM, as the Americans call it. So it's gone back to the pre-2018 name. Is this a sign that America is, undervaluing the Indo-Pacific, or the Indo-Pacific is no longer that important for America's security scheme of things? I don't know. But if indeed it is the case, if indeed America is downgrading its importance to the Indo-Pacific, then the next step would be that they will not be that gung-ho over the Quad, the four-nation grouping of Japan, Australia, India, and the U.S. If America is not gung-ho about the Quad, and by the way, India hosts the Quad summit this year, I'm not sure about the future of that grouping. And again, that will have down-the-line security implications for India, not least because we have a vested interest in ensuring that China doesn't become a hegemonic power in this region.
From Indo-Pacific to Pacific, and obviously in the changing scenario, how the meeting plays out is going to be very, very significant. Death of 3 Indian sailors, trade negotiation, tariff tensions, etc. likely to come up. Zaka, thank you for joining us with all these updates and giving us a perspective as to what we can expect from Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump's meeting. That crucial talks lined up today evening. That's going to be one of our top focus stories. As of now, viewers, we're slipping into a short commercial break.